In this video, we are going to be looking at lists. Now, lists in Python are just another data structure. Now, we have already looked at one data structure, and that data structure is variables. Inside variables, we can store values like name equals Muqtadir or class equals 6, etc. Now, let's say we want to store the names of fruits. For example, apple, cherry, pear, etc. So to store this in a variable, we would have to create separate variables for each of these. So fruit 1 equals apples, fruit 2 equals cherries, fruit 3 equals pear, so on and so forth. Now that seems quite wrong because these fruits have a connection between each other and we should be able to store them in a single variable named fruits. That's where lists come in handy. So let's say we have a list named fruits. To create a list, we have to have an opening square bracket and a closing square bracket. And inside that, we have to give some value like our item 1 and then our item 2. We separate our items by using a comma in lists. So if we input our names of fruits, we would have cherry, then apple, then pear, all of them separated by a comma. And now we can store all of these three fruit names inside a single variable named fruits. So in here, I will just comment out all of this code. You can select all of this and then press Ctrl and then front slash. That will comment out all of these lines. You can also delete it. That's just your personal preference. Now below here, we are going to create a list and our list will be named fruits. We will have three fruit names. First we will give our opening square bracket and then our closing square bracket. And inside that, to store our fruit name, we will give double quotes or you can use single quotes. And inside that we will give the name of our fruit like cherry. Then if we want to provide another fruit, we have to separate it by a comma and then provide the name of our second fruit, in this case apple, then another comma, then pear, and you can add as many fruit names as you want. Now you don't really have to provide a space here, but it just looks more clean. If I don't provide this space, then our code looks very messy and congested. So providing a space just makes it look more cleaner. Now if I print the fruits list and run our code, as you can see, it printed the list. So we have cherry, apple, and then pear. Now let's say I want to access cherry and print only cherry out in the console, or I want to access apple. So how can I do that? Well, we can use indexes in lists. So if I want to print out cherry in the console, I can just do fruits and then the index 0. For apple, we will access the index 1. For pear, we will access the index 2. So this is just the same concept of index that we had with strings, but in this case, in our lists, instead of accessing a single character, we access an element inside our list. So let's try it out. Let's say I want to print out apple. So cherry is at the 0th index, then apple is at the first index. So I will provide one here, fruits, and then opening square bracket, then our index, then a closing square bracket. Now if we run our code, as you can see, it printed out apple. Now we can also use negative indexes. So pause the video and tell me what -1 of fruits will print out. -1 will print the last element in our list. So if I run it, as you can see, it printed pear. And we can also provide -2, and that will print out the second last element in our list. In this case, that's apple. And finally, we can print out -3, which is going to print out the third last element in our list, which is cherry. Now let's see how we can change an element in our lists. So we can just do fruits and then we have to provide the index of the element that we want to change. For example, let's say we want to change the cherry element. This is at the 0th index, so we'll give fruits and then 0th index is equals to, and then in here we can provide a value, and that value will replace this value. So let's say instead of cherry, I want to replace that with watermelon. Now I will just print out the fruits list, and if I run my code, as you can see, it replaced cherry with watermelon. Now we can also add elements in lists, and we can do that by using the append function. So we use the name of our list, in this case fruits, and then dot append, and then after that we just provide the value. For example, watermelon. Since we removed the line that was going to replace cherry with watermelon, we are just going to append watermelon to our list. Now if I run my code, as you can see, it appended watermelon to the end of this list. So when you use the append function, it is going to add that element at the end of the list. Now let's say we want to add a lot more fruits. Let's say I want to add 3 more fruits. Then I would have to repeat this line 3 more times. So I would have to say watermelon and then mango and then banana. Now this is taking a lot of lines, and if I run it, it is going to work. As you can see, it added all of those 3 elements to our list, but this is taking a lot of lines in our code. So what we can do is we can search in Google. If you search something like how to add multiple elements in list in Python. Now as you can see, we got the first link of Stack Overflow. If I click in this, we can see that a person is having the same problem that we have. And if we scroll down, we can see that somebody has given the answer to it. So we can use the extend function, and then inside that we can provide another list which will just append all of the elements inside that list to our original list. So let's try it. In here, instead of writing 3 lines, I will comment these out, and then below this I am going to try the extend function. So fruits dot extend, and then we have to give a list. So I want to add 3 fruits. The first one is going to be watermelon, the second one will be apple, and the third one is pear. Now if I run my code, as you can see, we got the same result, but in this case, instead of using 3 lines, we only used 1 line. Now you don't have to memorize all of the functions of lists. That's why we have Google and documentations. You don't really have to memorize all of the functions of lists and all of the functions of strings to be a good programmer. You can just Google or use the documentations. In the next video, I have a coding challenge for you, which is going to use your knowledge of lists. So for all of that and more, I'll see you there.